Welcome to Write Books That Sell Now, the podcast helping you write, publish, and market your book faster, better, and smarter. Here are your hosts, working hard and having fun doing it, Candace L. Davis, Anita Henderson, and Carol Dunlop.
Hey, friends and fans, you are back here with us, the Write Books That Sell Now team on the podcast that is super excited, as always, to bring you the real world of being a successful and a very business-focused, self-published author. We're excited to have you here with the Write Books That Sell Now team. Of course, I'm Anita Henderson, your host, actually your co-host, because I'm here with my two partners in success, Candace L. Davis and Carol J. Dunlop. Ladies, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, guys. Well, we're here with another episode of high content, rich value information. And let me tell you what we're going to talk about. Sometimes we got to back it all the way up to the beginning, right? So we're going to be talking today about the one thing, the single thing, the main thing you need to get started writing your book. You may be stuck at the start. A lot of people get stuck there and they never finish. They keep trying and it doesn't go anywhere. Well, there's one thing we are absolutely sure you need to get started writing your book, and we're going to share that with you on this episode. But before we get into that, we're going to pick Carol's brain this time. Carol, honey, this is sometimes a dangerous question, but what's on your mind?
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for trusting me. What's on my mind today is I hate cancer. That is what's on my mind.
We can agree.
Yes. So this past weekend, I went to visit a very dear friend of mine and my husband. He actually grew up with my husband in the Virgin Islands. They played basketball together. They've been friends for over 30 years, at least, maybe longer, probably 40 years, I guess. And 2 years ago, he found out that he had cancer. Not only did he have one type of cancer, he had three. He had lung, brain, and adrenal glands. He had cancer in his adrenals. This comes from a man who is the epitome of health, who has never smoked a day in his life, but he worked for a prison. He worked for the federal prison system. He was a warden. I mean, he made it all the way up to the big stuff. And one day he was having a hard time breathing. And I don't know if it had been a succession of weeks or whatever. He had a hard time breathing. He went to his doctor. He's like, I just can't breathe. I'm going up the steps. I'm losing my breath. They took an x-ray and found out that he had stage 4 lung cancer.
Gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
And that was, like I said, it was 3 years ago. So 2 years ago, he moved back to Atlanta. And his family bought a house. He bought a house for his family. He has two wonderful, awesome kids and a wife. Her name is Carol too, and they're just an awesome family. So from then till now, he is in the. I don't want to say that he's dying, because all of us are dying every single day. We just don't know when we're going to actually, die, kick the bucket, pass over, whatever you want to say. But he is deteriorating. The cancer is spreading, and we went to see him because some of his friends from Florida came up, and so we had like a big type of reunion thing. And that man is funny as all get out. Oh my God, we had the best time. I mean, yes, he is very, very skinny. He's not eating. The chemo, he's on oral chemotherapy now, and they really have said that they can't do anything else for him because of the advanced stage. His lungs accumulate about a liter of fluid that they have to drain off at least once a week, and he has said that now he wants to die at home. He doesn't want to go back to the hospital. He doesn't want to spend the money that it takes, because they're just going to drain all his money. And just to tell you what kind of, and I wanted to just dedicate this banter section to him, to James and his wife Carol, and his son Princeton, and his daughter Star, because that man is such a warrior. I mean, he can't eat like he wants. The chemo stops his taste buds. He can't do what he wants. He can't walk more than a few steps, but he can walk. He spent that whole day with us. We got there at I think the other people had been there since 10. We got there probably about 1, and we didn't leave till maybe 6 o'clock. And He was showing us around the house. He was just laughing and joking. We were having a great time. So that's why I want to say I hate cancer, because I had cancer. And I think I was the only person in there who had actually had cancer and gone through all that. So we were actually talking about everything that it goes through. It's not really the cancer that kills you. It's the treatment for the cancer. It's the chemo, because the chemotherapy is a poison that goes into your system that kills off your cells, and it destroys cells. And so while it's destroying cells, it's destroying the living, healthy things that keep you alive. You don't want to eat. You don't want to do anything. But this warrior, this man, so proud of him, because he took, and they bought this house 2 years ago. He has paid off his house. He has put all his affairs in order. He knows that when he does pass, his wife will be taken care of. His kids will be taken care of. His wife doesn't have to work. The kids are taken care of with their school. And it was just really a blessing to see someone with the forethought and so pragmatic about everything. I mean, we were joking about, what chemo does to you, and how the whole cancer, the whole thing is a money-making thing. Because even when I was going through chemo, the day after, I had to get the shot called Neulasta. And you may see the commercials for it now, where the woman has a Neulasta thing on the back of her arm. How about that shot was $3,000 a shot? $3,000. There was something that they were going to do for him, some treatment, and he said that it was going to be $14,000 just to get each treatment that he went in. Every time they went in to do something, it was a couple thousand of this. So he has said if he has to go back to the hospital, he's not going. He's going to live out his last days with his family, and just live his life as best as he can. The part that I hate most about cancer is the suffering, because it's not like you walk outside, you get hit by a bus, you're gone, or you're in some kind of gunfight and they shoot you and you're dead. It is a long-term type of continual suffering that your body is trying to fight. It loses its fight, and you die. So I just wanted to dedicate this banter, this time, to James and Carol and Star and Princeton, and just say, you go, warriors, because we are right here for you. And I hate that you're going through this, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And one day, hopefully, we'll stop this awful thing from happening, but I don't know. But that's what my banter is about. Sorry.
That's okay. Thanks for that, Carolyn. Actually, we're going to dedicate this entire episode to James and his family and to his life. And really, I think, Candace, I'm sure you can agree that just about everybody we know has been touched, unfortunately, by cancer in one way or another. It is an awful, awful condition, disease, and we pray for some kind of cure. Yes, it is an industry. And so that is unfortunate, because there's a lot of people making money, unfortunately, on cancer and its treatments. But we believe that there's a cure out there somewhere, and we just pray that we all see it very, very soon. So thank you for sharing that story about James. Again, James, you're a fighter, you're a warrior, and we just wish you strength in all your coming days. God bless you and your family.
Definitely.
So we are going to proceed with the Write Books That Sell Now podcast. We know that James has a story, and his family have a story.
Yes.
And all of you out there have a story also. And sometimes we get stuck trying to figure out how to get started telling that story. We're all about a story. We love the story. But it can be difficult to get started, right? You think you can just sit down and write the thing out, but it's not always that easy. Candace is our resident storyteller, genius writer, ghostwriter, and she's written many, many stories and helped other people write theirs, both fiction and nonfiction. So if there's anybody out there who knows how to write a story and tell a story, it is Candace L. Davis. And Candace is going to show us and tell us what we really need to get started writing those stories. Candace, where do you see most authors get stuck at the start?
So, Anita, you know this. I came to writing from a literary fiction background, and I had the wonderful privilege of studying with some of the best authors of literary fiction in the Southern California area. So I studied with people like Mary Rako, who won a huge award, a Landon Foundation Award for her first book, and Janet Fitch, who her book was picked as an Oprah Book Club pick and was made into a movie, and her second book was just made into a movie, and her third book is about to come out. These people are stars in the literary fiction world. They also take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to write each of their books. That's fine for literary fiction. But for most of us who are writing memoirs or how-to books, and we have a purpose that we want our books to serve for our business and for our life and for other people, we don't want to spend 5 to 10 years writing a book. And one of the reasons that they take that long is because they have a philosophy of not outlining their books. For the most part, they start with a character or a situation and they write and they see where that goes. And I can do that with a short story and even with a novel if I'm not in any rush to finish it. But when you're writing a book about your life, or you're writing a book that teaches someone how to do something, probably don't want to spend 10 years. You don't want to spend a decade. You may want to write more than one book before you leave this earth. And a lot of authors get stuck because they jump into the writing process without a plan. And all an outline is, it's just a plan. It's a plan for what you're going to write, for what you're going to include in each chapter, for how you're going to tell a story to support whatever it is that you're trying to tell people, whatever the message of your book is. And a lot of people will jump in, and the beginning feels easy, right? Because you're really excited and you're pumped up and you're writing, and maybe you write like even 30 or 40 pages. And you don't have a clue where to go next because you don't have a plan. How do I know? I did it a million times myself. So I am definitely speaking from experience. In the beginning of my writing career, I have more books half written or 1/3 written than any one person should have on their hard drive or in their file folder. And they're sitting in there because I didn't outline them. I can tell you that everything I've outlined, I've finished. So
that's a good point.
Having everything I've outlined, I've finished. Some stuff I didn't outline, I finished, but it took me way longer than it needed to. But everything that I have outlined, I've been able to finish, beginning, middle, and end. And so many authors are excited and they just want to write.
Right.
Without taking that step.
With no plan. Okay. So I will tell you, Candace, that for the majority of people I talk to, this doesn't include me because I'm a super duper planner. I can't even help it, quite frankly. But most people are averse to planning. It's like, it seems boring to them. It seems hard and it seems too structured. So give us one simple way to plan your book or outline your book so that it's not hard.
So if you pick up a book in the bookstore to read it and it has no structure, are you going to buy it? If it's all over the place and you don't know what the author's talking about next or what's going to come up next or what happens in the next chapter has nothing to do with what happened in the last chapter, are you going to buy that book? Or are you going to put it down and look for something that has a freaking structure? If I'm trying to learn from your life story or learn how to do something from you, I've got to be able to follow what you're talking about.
Right.
So 2 different paths you might be taking. If you're writing your life story, first of all, you need to know what the heck you're writing about, right? Choose one idea. That's the book you're writing right now. All those other great ideas are still going to be there. Just wait, Carol. They're still going to be there. Don't worry about it. Choose one idea. So once you've done that, if you're writing a memoir, say your life story, just make a list. Make a list of the big events, the pivotal events, the high moments and the low moments that happened in your life. That's a list of things that you're going to include. That's the start of your outline. If you're writing a how-to book, make a list of the steps that you're going to include in your how-to book. That's the beginning of your outline. Each one of those steps could be a chapter. I have a great book it's a book that I was reading, and each chapter is literally step 1, step 2, step 3 is a chapter. And that is a great way to begin to organize your book.
So let's go back to the memoir and we say, okay, I want to write a book about my life. And you say, make a list of the key activities or events that happened in your life. How many is too many?
I was born. That's the first thing.
If you're starting with I was born, you probably don't need to start with that. What are you talking about? What is your book about, right? Because a memoir doesn't have to be about your entire life story. Mm-hmm. If your memoir is about your coming of age, then it may end when you go off to college. So you don't need all the events that happened after that. If it's a memoir about your professional career, then it may not begin until after you're 25 or 30 years old. So you don't need to worry about all that stuff that came before. It's not necessary to include every moment of your life. What are you trying to communicate? What is it that you're trying to get to the reader? You only want to include the moments that are relevant to that message you're trying to give.
So memoir is not like the totality of your life, as
that would be a biography.
Maybe biography, autobiography. So when we're talking about memoir and outlining memoir, we want to think about what's the main focus of this particular memoir. As you said, I could talk about my career. That's an aspect of my life and the things that happened in my career. I could talk about, maybe as a parent. I wouldn't talk about that, but either of you could. You could talk about whatever, different people you've met or your relationship with your parents or whatever. Just figure out what that focus is and then make your list of the key events as it relates to that focus.
Yeah. So for example, I had a client who wrote a book about her marriage. It was really about how she and her husband failed miserably at marriage the first time, got a divorce, and then remarried to each other and did it much better the second time. Well, she didn't need to tell us about her childhood. Yeah, there was some references to that. Right. It's just not relevant to the story. She didn't marry this man until she was in her 20s. They started dating in high school. So the story kind of started in high school, but those were minor moments. They weren't married yet. So the major moments happened after they said, I do. That's when her story really began. So whatever came before that, we really didn't need to know. You may mention it as a way of filling in background information, but her mother going to the hospital and delivering her was not a scene that we needed to see in the book. It just wasn't relevant.
So Candace,
if it's relevant, include it. If it's not, leave it out.
Are you talking about something like, I look at it when we look at movies. We look at movies, they only cover a certain aspect of a story. Like JFK when he was killed or something. That's the biggest thing we know about John F. Kennedy. He was killed at this moment. But then now they have that movie out about Jackie, and they're talking about her and her whole journey of after he died till I don't know how long, maybe a couple of years or something, how she got over it. So if you think of your book in a segment of your life, I think that'll help if you're doing a memoir. That's what I think about when you're talking about like that. Is that on track?
That's right on track.
And then you talked about if we're writing a how-to book, like we're teaching people how to do something. Mm-hmm. To me and to you, obvious way to plan or outline that book is with the steps of your process of how you're teaching someone how to do it. Is there anything else that might be included in the plan or the outline for a how-to book?
So for me, Anita, and I know you do this as well, I always like to use stories to illustrate whatever that step is, right? So you want to show someone, you're going to give them the step, but you also want to show them someone, whether it was you or a client or a friend or a family member.
Right. So she's talking about how we can add family member stories, case stories, if we've seen those things used with clients of ours or examples of other people who have done this particular step that you're talking about. And ideally, in terms of benefiting the reader, you want to show a progression, like where did they start, what did they do, and what was the outcome? That's how you're serving the reader. So I love that idea, Candace, about including stories in your how-to book to support the steps that you're talking about.
And it's so much more interesting. I mean, everybody loves a before and after show. Like I watch Property Brothers, but I watch the beginning and then I will often fast forward through the middle and just see the end. Yes, because I like seeing the before and the after, but I don't necessarily need to see every detail that happened in between. But a before and after, when you can show that the information that you're giving actually caused a positive transformation for someone by giving a very specific example. We do that in our own book, Write Books That Sell Now, our ebook available on Amazon. With each of the steps that we share, we also share examples of our clients and our students who have implemented those actual steps. Sometimes it's us who implemented them, but we're showing you the transformation, how it actually got you closer to your goal by implementing that step. And it just makes it more fun to read it, honestly.
Agreed. Now, with regard to planning and sort of charting out these steps or activities or key moments in your life, I'm a bullet point person. I always blame that on my years in PR. We bullet point everything. And so I think very linear in that way. Tell us some other examples or some other resources that authors can use to outline that are not that linear bullet point way.
Yeah. So, one of the reasons why most people, including me, rejected outlining for so long was because we were traumatized by it in school. Like I was that person who would write the essay or the research paper and then go back and write the outline if I had to turn it in. Because I just
how do you do that? That is so foreign to me.
The process.
I've done that before. Where
you had to do Roman numeral, Arabic numeral, capital letter, lowercase letter. I hated that crap. Like it just felt so torturous and so constraining. I actually use it now because it's no big deal anymore, but I just did not like being forced to do it. But if that doesn't work for you, don't do it. I love bullet points. A lot of times, Anita, I do a bullet pointed list as well. A lot of people use mind mapping, which there's mind mapping software you can use where you simply start with your central idea and then you branch off into related ideas. So each one of these first branches might be a chapter, and then you branch from those chapter circles into what you want to include in the chapter. A lot of people use software. You guys know I believe in pen and paper for that kind of thing, because I just believe that the ideas flow in a different way when you're actually using pen and paper. And I actually believe in big pen and paper. So those big Post-it notes that you can buy that are the size of a poster board and rip off and stick on the wall, or even just using a whiteboard and take a picture of it when you're done so that you can maintain it.
Yep. Yeah, the whiteboard thing I've done with other projects, with research projects I've done. So trying to figure out where different aspects of the research go in terms of telling the story. But I know Candace also uses the smaller sticky notes in terms of and you may do it on the whiteboard or on your big picture, the sticky page, to say, well, here's a scene or here's a story or here's a step, and I'm going to move that over here and this over here. Is that how you use it?
I do. I use either Post-it notes, which I put on a whiteboard. And so I divide the whiteboard into chapter sections and then stick the Post-it notes on there of the information that I want to go in each chapter. And you may want to move it later. I also use index cards. Believe it or not, I have a bulletin board with the old thumbtacks that you just stick in there.
Old school.
She is old school for real. I love it though. I love it.
Those. You might want to decide this goes to a different chapter, right? So it makes it really easy to have a visual way to see what you're doing. So maybe I wanted to tell the story about Anita meeting Carol in chapter 1, and then I figure out that actually that belongs in chapter 3, and I can just easily move it. And lastly, I do use Scrivener, which is a particular software for writing. I use it for writing books, but you can use it for writing almost anything. And it has an index card element in it, where when you create your outline, each point from your outline goes on an index card. So then you can easily move it around. But you don't need to learn a whole new software. It does have a learning curve, and you can just as easily use Post-it notes or actual index cards, and they're fun. It feels like you're in school again.
Oh gosh, I don't know if that's fun for most people, but hey,
I like school.
I liked school too, but not everybody did. So listen, we're going to hear from Carol about her book planning and outlining process and where she is in the venture and the journey to get her book published. We'll hear from her as soon as we come back. We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our sponsors. We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Write Your Life, helping professionals and entrepreneurs be an author, be an expert, be amazing. Write Your Life offers expert author coaching and book production services to help you produce a phenomenal self-published book you can use to leverage your business and your brand. Visit them at www.writeyourlife.net.
All right. Welcome back to Write Books That Sell Now, the podcast that gives you real insight into the real business of being a successful self-published author. We've been talking about what you need to get started, just the groundwork stuff to get started writing your book. If you have not started, or even if you've tried to start multiple times, you might be getting stuck. And it's probably because you don't have the one element we've been talking about, and that is an outline, a general plan for getting from point one to point two, or as we say, getting from once upon a time to the end. Now, if you've been listening to and following Write Books That Sell Now, you know that our very own Carol J. Dunlop is in the midst. I mean, she's like this close to finishing her book. She's finished the first round of her manuscript, and she's in the process. So, Carol, why don't you share with us what the journey has been like for you, and really how you started with your book? What kind of outline or plan did you use?
Well, thank you, Anita. I will be happy to share my journey. It's been like a mind-blowing experience.
In a good way. In a good way.
In a good way, in a crazy way at some point, because I never thought that I would write the book that I finally wrote. You know, I had this idea. It was going to be a memoir, and it was going to be about my journey, mine and my husband's journey with, cancer for me and a stroke for him, and how we got through that and all that. And Anita so wisely said, girl, write the money book first. These other books will always be in your soul, in your spirit. You can get them out. Write the book. Why do you even want to write a book? And I said, I want to write this book to actually help jumpstart my speaking career and promote my business. She was like, well, you need to write the money book. And I was like totally stumped. I don't even know what to write. I had nothing else in my brain about some money book or whatever you're talking about. But once I thought about it, I came up with the idea that I would write a book about how I had been able to market my business for over 22 years and still have it be successful. And what was it that I did? And I came up with 10 strategies that I used. And each of the chapters is about one of those strategies. So there's 10 strategies, 10 chapters that create that part of it. That was the easy part, coming up with those 10 strategies, because I had a lot of things that I did, but the most successful things is what I put in the book itself. And to me, I'm old school, like Candace. I like pen and paper. I don't necessarily put things on the wall, but I have a long, the lined pad, the white pad with the lines on it that has to be glued at the top. And that's what, just specific. And I wrote my outline down on that. I wrote what each chapter was going to be about before I created the chapter name. And then once I wrote what each chapter was about, I just put like a general what I'm going to put in there. And that's all I did till I got the 10 things done. And then once I got the 10 things done, then I went back and I kind of put a couple of bullet points on each one, some major points that I really wanted to cover. For instance, one of my chapters is called Show Out, and Show Out is all about how you create a podcast like this one to help market your business. And I wanted to show how, number one, how easy it is to do a podcast, the choices that you have in podcasting, whether you're going to do an audio only or a video or an audio or a video, the equipment that it takes to do it, which is very simple, very easy to do, the technology that's involved. And I went through that whole thing and outlined it. And I was just ready to go till I talked to Anita. And she said, okay, you can't just start this thing with the strategies. I need some type of intro or something on there. And then after, what am I going to do with those strategies? How do I know, what to do after I got these strategies? And then what, girlfriend? So I was like, dang, I got to go back and put more stuff in this. Oh, my God. So we went back and I created more than an intro, like a beginning section. And the strategies are in the middle, and then there's an ending section that tells you what's coming next. How can I use all this stuff to be, to really be successful with my business? And once we put it all together, it was quite awesome. It was really, really good. And the ideas started to flow. We can talk about, how wrote it later, but it was really
Well, and
good.
that's the biggest chunk of the book. That's the
Yeah.
center part, those 10 strategies. And then you have a section before that and a section after that.
Right.
Talk about how many times your outline changed in this process.
Well, since Anita and I kid around with Anita, and if you guys have listened to this podcast for any length of time, I'm always joking with her about, oh my God, what a author, coach, editor, psycho she is about the stuff. But
you can thank me later.
I'm thanking you right now at every chance I can get. But what she did help me to do was to hone in on my ideas and really keep the reader involved. Really keep the reader top of mind, because there were things that I wanted to put into the outline. She was like, I don't nobody care about that right there. What is that? Why is that even in here? This is just, I don't even want to know about that. That has nothing to do. Relevancy, that's her word. So we had to take those out. I did live with that first outline for the first 2 or 3 months. I lived with that first outline. Then I gave her some of the chapters, and she was like, this is not quite working. I hadn't even written all of the strategies. She was like, this is not quite working. The end thing seems flat. So I had to go back and revise it. And we tried again, and I started writing. And then I felt like, this is not what I want to say. This is leading off some other, like it would take too much for me to explain what was going on in these 10 strategies, that I was like, okay, I X'd out 3 of the strategies, brought in 3 more. And then we refined the end part a little bit. And then we went back to the beginning and refined that. So I'd say the outline changed maybe about 4 times.
Yeah.
And we wound up, it was so funny because I had already written the first part, and those were the first 4 or 5 chapters. That whole thing changed. We took those chapters, rewrote them, and they got them down to maybe 3 chapters, but they were the same things. They just had a little bit different focus and a different title, but it made all the difference in making the book flow. So when you read it, when you see it and you get into it, you're like, oh, now I see why this stuff. Yeah. So it was all about just keeping the reader in mind. My purpose was, yes, I want to write this book to jumpstart my speaking career and to market my business, but people aren't going to look at it and understand that they can market their business using these tactics if they're confused, because a confused mind does nothing. They'll just put the book down and go to something else that seems easier or, more congruent with what they're trying to do. So I really had to keep that in mind. And the outline kept me on track, because it was sometimes that I got up at 7 o'clock in the morning I really got up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could be ready to write at 7, that I was like, what the heck am I writing about? And if I didn't have that outline, I would just be like this for that hour.
So watching that blasted cursor blinking in your face.
Right. The worst feeling ever.
Yeah.
Carol, were you surprised that your outline changed? Like when you got the first outline down and you were happy with it, did you think, oh, yay, I'm done. This is it. It's written in stone. Were you surprised that it changed?
Of course, because I just knew that this was, I didn't even know that I could, number one, get an outline out of what I was talking about. I had no idea that the subject matter that I was thinking about, because, how we talk about this all the time. We don't know how awesome we all are. And we discount our awesomeness because, hey, I know that, everybody should know that right there. Don't you know how to hook up lead pages and MailChimp and make WebJam come in there and do all that stuff? Yeah, everybody knows that, right? No.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. So with Anita's great tutelage and help, I was able to just hone it down, get the relevant parts out, and then see that the next chapter or the next section was not going to even go with this part. That had nothing to do with this. That was going to take the reader on a whole other ride that maybe a whole other book. So just keeping focused. And then I wasn't afraid to change it, because Anita.
And I really appreciate that.
I wasn't married to it. I wasn't like, oh my God, if you change this thing, it's going to change my whole life. And I can't do that. I didn't care about that, because what was my goal? My goal was to jumpstart my speaking career, market my business. And I wanted to produce the absolute best product I could produce. And so I didn't, and you can say this, Anita, I didn't fight with you. I mean, I talked about you behind your back and stuff, but.
And in my face too, but.
And your face. But I didn't.
But what, the book is awesome now. It is amazing. It's actually in beta reader stage right now. So she's got some beta readers reviewing it for additional feedback. Candace, I think you're going to thank us both when you get it for copy editing. And then after we see it,
I can't wait, actually.
We may talk a little bit more about Carol's book on another episode of the podcast, because there's a section at the end of the book that she cut out. And I just laughed when I went through the last read that it wasn't there anymore. Oh, it needed to go. Don't be shocked. It needed to go. She was like way off in left field.
Oh, wow.
Why?
You know what? I read that part. I read it. I got the manuscript back and I got to almost the end. And I could tell I was getting better because I saw less and less red at each stage. And this last time, it was hardly any red. I'm like, oh my God, hardly any red. So I get to the last part and it has this long paragraph like that. And it says, I don't even know why this is in here. This really is, I don't think it's relevant. Da, 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 da. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. So I got about halfway through that. I went back and delete. Good. Keep moving. Keep moving. I ain't got time.
That's all you do, Crystal Lee. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you didn't spend a lot of time going, why doesn't she want this in here?
Girl,
I was like,
reword it to make Anita like it. Girl, I was like, just get rid of it.
Save it for a blog post or an ebook.
It would be a great blog
else.
post, because she was offering a tribute to someone who had influenced her in business. And it was very nice, but it just did not fit there.
Yeah.
And she was, I could tell that we were having a little bit of a struggle ending the book. And so as difficult for many of you that you may be having starting the book, sometimes it's hard to end it. And I think Candace will agree that that outline helps a lot.
It did.
Yeah, because the last thing on the outline should be the last thing you're writing in that book. When you get to the end of that outline and you're still writing, you better pump the brakes. Why the heck are you still writing? You have reached the end. And it's the same thing with,
you've made me cry if it's your memoir. You've given me the lesson and all. It's like, end it. The end. Boom.
End it. And with the memoir, you should not be writing about yesterday. Yesterday should not be the last page in your memoir. I have this problem with people all the time. You have to have a specific time where your memoir is cut off, because remember, you want to leave the reader with a certain sense of satisfaction, right? Your book has reached the climax. You, the character, have achieved something that you were trying to achieve, whatever it was that you've been pursuing through this whole book. The book is climaxed now. We've had a little bit of a summary and a wrap up, and we're done. We don't need to know what happens 6 months later and a year later. That's the next book. Exactly. This book is done. That last scene you had on your outline is the last scene you should be writing in this book. You're done.
And you know what? That same wrap up I did with a how-to book or, a self-help kind of book. It's like, let me go, says the reader. Release me, free me, and let me go so I can go do the stuff you're teaching me to do. Otherwise, I keep reading these pages like, when's she going to wrap it up? So close it. You wish me well to go and conquer and achieve what you just taught me to do, and let me go.
Let me go.
And you can do that in other places, like you said, a blog post, because that, in truth, because I say this in the book, I did take a few of my blog posts and incorporated them into the book, but I had to expand on them or whatever. And that was one of the blog posts that I really, really liked. And I'm like, I'm putting this in there. This would be good to end this out. And it went through 3 revisions. Well, it went through 3 revisions without her saying anything. And she just said, frankly, Carol, I think this is blah, blah, blah. Like I said, halfway through that, click out, done. I ain't got time for this. It's over. It's over for that. She can get a tribute somewhere else when I meet her in person or something,
Exactly. You'll find out who it is later. Yeah. Well, this is great. Any other parting comments about outlining and starting the book, Candace?
Just that it's so worth the time. I mean, it is so worth the time. When I work with a ghostwriting client, we might spend our first 3 hours working together, getting the outline right. 3 hours, you guys, of us talking and going back and forth and getting the outline right. And we do that. We invest that time up front because it will save you so much time in the long run. Every time when Carol sat down to write at 7 a.m., she knew exactly what she had to write. Carol, if you know Carol, that chick is busy. She does not have time to be sitting there staring at a blank screen. So when she sat down, she had to know, what am I supposed to be writing about today? And she could look at her outline that Anita had helped her refine and see exactly what to write today. It was so worth the effort of doing all those iterations of it and getting it exactly right so that you could get going. But Carol also didn't wait for it to be perfect. She got an outline and she got started, right? Knowing that it could be adjusted along the way. It is worth the time and energy invested in that.
Love it. I love that perfection. That's going to have to be another podcast topic.
I know.
Don't let perfection stop you. Excellent, excellent. So everybody, you got your marching orders. You know how to start. Don't get stuck at the start. Do your plan, do your outline, and go all the way through from the beginning of your book to the end of what stories you're going to include, what key points, what main events in your life are critical. And then you can fill it in the blanks later and use Carol as an example and understand that sometimes that outline does change. It's okay. It adjusts, I'll say. And that's just part of the process. So Carol, anything left on your book adventure for right now you want to share?
Oh, well, I'm in the process of my 30 days of creating my virtual book tour because I have a goal. Because we did move when the book was going to be coming out. We moved that a month ahead, and that's okay. That's fine. It's good because it's going to be even greater now. And so my goal is to do 30 days of a virtual tour. That means guest blog posting, guesting on podcasts, and any kind of appearances. So I'm in the process of kind of setting that up now. And the great thing about that is when I start setting it up, I wound up doing extra webinars, extra joint venture projects, meeting new people, getting involved with other stuff. I haven't even put one date on the 30-day tour yet. Not one. But I have 3 joint venture webinars already set up with people who want to work with me. So, dang, it's all,
pretty awesome.
All right. Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I'm everybody, if you want to continue to follow Carol's book publishing journey, and it's coming out soon. Her book is launching soon. We're just maybe about a month beyond the planned date, and it's all good because that happens too. Then you need to go on writebooks.sellnow.com/training, and you can get on our list and be updated. It is so interesting to read her posts and her notes in our weekly newsletter about where she is in this journey. So that's writebooks.sellnow.com/training, and you will get on our list and get those weekly updates. But this has been great. I love talking about outlining. Candace is such the outline queen. So who's got a shout out, ladies?
I've got a shout out, Anita.
Okay.
So we were talking about getting started writing your book. One of the things that I really encourage people to do is read books in your genre that you plan to write in. So if you plan to write a business how-to book, read some. If you plan to write a cookbook, read some. And if you plan to write a memoir, read some. But what you want to make sure you're doing is reading good examples, right? You don't want to be picking up anybody's bad habits. Right. So for those of you who are out there thinking of writing a memoir, a book that will tell your personal story, even your professional story, I have a great book for you. It's an older book. I got it years ago. And it's a traditionally published book. It was a New York Times bestseller. I'm hoping it'll be a movie one day because it's a great story. But it's called Cooked by Chef Jeff Henderson. Cooked, my story, my journey from the streets to the stove. And it tells his story of growing up in Southern California, becoming a drug dealer, getting into all kinds of trouble, going to prison and learning how to cook in prison. And that learning how to cook in prison turned his life around. And whenever I start writing a new memoir, a lot of my ghostwriting clients are memoir clients. Whenever I start writing a new one, I come back and I read a little bit of this book. I flip through and I read a little bit of this book. And the reason why I do that is because Chef Jeff's book is so incredibly well written. He pulls you in from the very first line of the book. That's what you want to do with any book, but especially a memoir. You want to pull people in and immediately make them wonder what's going to happen next, immediately make them curious about the characters and the setting and all of that stuff. And your story does not have to have the deep drama of going to prison. There are lots of kinds of drama in life. I'm not writing any prison books right now, but there are lots of kinds of drama in life. But the beauty of this book is that you almost feel like you're reading a novel. And a great memoir will make you feel that way because it pulls you into the scenes. You feel like you're in Southern California with him for the moment. You feel like you're in Las Vegas with him when he goes there to get his first big job as a chef or to try to. It is one of the best models for a memoir that I can recommend. And it is something you need to read. If you're writing in the genre, you need to be reading in that darn genre. Do not try to jump in and write a kind of book that you have never read. That's absolutely crazy. Read in the genre and read the best. find. This is Cooked by Jeff Henderson, and it's available everywhere. It's a great read.
Love it. I'm going to have to pick that up. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, me too.
I love a good memoir. The operative word is good. Okay, so that's a no for everybody listening. That's enough for everybody listening. Again, we do appreciate you watching and listening to Write Books That Sell Now, the podcast. We have so much fun, can't you tell? Just sharing information to help you be a smart and successful self-published author. The industry is wide open. We're waiting for you to get your book done, so get started the right way, with a plan, with an outline. We look forward to seeing your book. We also look forward to seeing your comments. Be sure to drop a comment on iTunes. If you're jogging right now or on the treadmill or doing whatever, just remember to go back and post a comment, when you get your laptop or your tablet available. We love to see your comments. All of that helps us just be a better podcast. So again, if you're interested in more about Carol's publishing journey and writing, be sure to find us and join us at writebooksthatsellnow.com/training, and you will get added to our list and get all kinds of wonderful freebies. You actually will get a free video series to help you get started with your book, and also some information from us on a weekly basis. So we will be back with another podcast soon. Until then, keep writing, and we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening. Find out more about becoming an author and making the most of your book at writebooksthatsellnow.com.